So this is a bit of a departure from what I usually review. Usually it's optics, mounts, rings, optic related stuff. So I guess this isn't too far off the beaten path, but it's still something that I haven't really done. What this is an EGW, clearly, precision rail for a CZ457. This is going to be going on my precision rig. And the reason why I'm swapping to this from what I previously had is because this is a full length pick rail. Might as well roll this in right now. Here is a Scars, or Trigger by Scars, Scars by Trigger, actually it's on the bottom. Triggers by Scar, zero cant pick rail for a 457. Typically these are the same between a 452, 455, or 457. This has worked perfectly fine for me at the time, but what I want to do is take a lot of the optics that I am currently reviewing and be able to put them on this rifle to shoot them. And the main reason why I couldn't do that was because of this section right here. Let me explain. I run a lot of American Defense recon mounts, just like this. In fact, they're 95% like this. I have a couple of different ones that I pull out if I need it, but for the vast majority of all of my reviews, the optics go inside these. And I like them because I can swap them out to different clamshells, but that's besides the point. The main thing, though, is center to center distance on the two cross bolts. And as you can see, where I need to mount this, I can only ever catch one. And that would be fine in most cases because it's only on a rimfire and these lock down pretty tight. But I can't get this to lay flat in there. As you'll see, I can get one in, but not the other. So this rail wasn't going to do what I needed it to do. So off with this and onto something like this. Now, why did I go with this as opposed to something like a 419 rail? 419 rail has a bubble level in the back, clamps on a fairly similar way, and it is also full pick rail. Well, the 419 rails are only canted. They only come with, I think it's like 15 or 30 MOA cant. You could also get the EGW with a cant, but I wanted it to be 0. And the reason for that is when you're dialing up an optic, for example, something like this, if you zero this out at 50 yards, it's going to be really close to what would a normal centerfire would run. But I like testing an optic, especially its clarity, out to farther distances. And with a 22 LR like I typically shoot out at 300 yards, you got to come up quite a ways. And you won't be able to tell how good an optic is going to perform until you're like 10 mils up. So it's just for me and my way of reviewing things. So that's why I wanted a 0 cant base, and that is why I went specifically with the EGW. As far as price is concerned, these are right around 80 bucks from their website, but with tax and shipping to New York, it came out to like 95 bucks, which isn't the end of the world. These are made in the US. They do come with a nice little torque driver to install this, and you have a lot of information on the back. They do recommend blue Loctite and torquing these down to 25 inch-pounds, which is probably what I'm going to be doing, but I'm not going to be using the blue Loctite only because, again, if I have to pull this off, I don't want to have to worry about cleaning the Loctite up if I'm going to retorque it. Package opens up fairly easily, as you could imagine. Precision parts proudly made in the USA. Thank you, EGW, for making parts here. I'm very happy to buy your product. And here it is. Very nicely machined so far. There is a little bit of debris on that, but that's only because the cardboard that came in the package. You have 4 large screws going across to the very large claw on one side. Now, it can't be full size, it can't be full length on both sides because it has to clear the ejection port. Now, with the Scar and with other rails like this, you have usually 4 set screws on top, which lock into 4 dimples on the top of the 457 receiver. That works fine. In fact, the UTG Pro rings that I have in my Royal also lock in with set screws to those pockets to prevent it from moving. It's also used a lot in air rifles because you usually get recoil both forward and backwards. But that's how most typical rails like this work on a 457 rail. These are nice because they're really low profile. Just look how thin that is. And as a result, they're also very lightweight. 1.3 ounces is basically nothing. And it's the exact same thing with the DIP rail that I have in my 452. They're very, very lightweight. The EGW does add basically 3 ounces to it, which is a lot. But this being a precision rig, I'm not overly concerned about overall weight. No. For me, I'm much more concerned that I can take an optic whether it be an LPVO, an MPVO, an HPVO, and I could put it on top of my rifle, lock it down like so, and be able to shoot with it at extended distances, to be able to see if I can see the splash of a 22 LR at distance, and again to bring up the elevation to see if the glass will be able to maintain its clarity at higher elevation. That's why I'm taking this off. This is a very good rail. If you're looking for a rail for the price point, these are like 30 or 40 bucks. These are really nicely made. The one criticism I have with any sort of top set screw rail like this is that the set screws are very, very small. And not so much the threads, but the hex that goes inside. I think they're 1.5 millimeter, and you just feel like you're just going to strip them with the lightest amount of torque. So that's one of my critiques about this setup, especially in this design, because yeah, he's got one over here. That could be a small one, or that could be alleviated completely, and you could run much larger set screws here to go into the receiver. In fact, let me show you what I'm talking about. You haven't seen this yet. I might do a full review on it, but we'll see. This is the same rifle, or at least same barreled action that came in my Manor stock and my Precision Varmint. It now sits in MPA chassis, which I basically stole from a guy. But if I decide to review it, I'll talk about it then. But as you could see with the Scars rail, you could see exactly where the set screws line up. There's dimpled on the receiver. Why does CZ not just mill a pick rail onto the top of their receiver? Cost. When I had this rifle apart, I was contemplating chucking this up into a lathe and truing up the face, but I chose not to. But when I was contemplating that, the action is machined out of a single piece of bar stock. So if they wanted to put pick rail slots here, they very well could, but they'd have to use a much larger piece of material and remove a lot more material as a result. So that's why these don't come with pick rails, or at least that's my understanding and reasoning behind it. I'm sure you can come up with another reason, but I guarantee you it's overall cost and time to machine. Just to go back on the Scar rail, or again like a DIP rail or other manufacturers that make rails for these, this has a hard stopped 11 millimeter dovetail already milled into it. As you can see, it slides on like so. Very tight, very little wiggle here. In fact, it's a perfect fit. And then you just lock up the set screws and then you're done. With the EGW, it doesn't have that because it's got 4 screws that with 2 opposing claws that are going to clamp on like a normal set of rings would, and then you're going to torque this down. One thing I would recommend doing, of course, is cleaning the actual dovetail on the action, because there could be some dirt and debris in there that could prevent this thing from locking up perfectly straight. Again, this is just me and my OCD. I'll put the safety on for you guys, even though there is no magazine and the chamber is empty. I'm even going to go with a nice microfiber towel and wipe it off. I do not have any compressed air on me, but I did blow this. I came out wrong. But I did blow it to make sure there was nothing on it. In fact, there you go. Now no one can say anything. I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to wipe down the new rail as such, and we're going to put this thing on. Now, as far as where I want to have it locationally wise on the action, you can see I can have it flush in the front or slightly more flush in the rear, but I'm going to look more or less at the ejection port because I don't want to have a casing stuck in the action by hitting this. So if I have it all the way forward, you could see this lines up well over here, but now it's a much larger wall for the casing to have to try to clear. So I'm going to go somewhere like in the middle. I think that'll be perfect. 25 plus a little bit. Wheeler torque wrench. These are amazing. If you do not have one, link in the description below, because I think every single person that has a firearm, whether they build rifles or not, should have a torque wrench, because if you ever have to pull anything apart, it's great to know that what you're putting back is the factory spec. Think of it like this, and I've had this happen to me. You go to take a tire off your car, you put the tire back on, you go to tighten up the lug nuts. What happens if you're at 20 foot-pounds as opposed to the typical 85 for a smaller car, or like 125 for a larger car? And then you're driving on the highway and all of a sudden the car feels really weird and you hear something hit the side of the car and then your fucking tire falls off. Same sort of principle, except over here you're just gonna be missing a target. Whereas with your car, you could run the risk of, you know, losing your life or your family's or someone else's. God forbid. Anyway, there it is. It goes on there beautifully. It looks fantastic. This is slightly extended on the front, which is nice. Another thing, actually, that I should have mentioned, I did not mention it earlier, but doesn't really matter, is with the SCAR rail, or again a DIP rail, this is so low that the bolt knob, or the arm for the bolt knob, would actually hit standard rings if there were anything any farther back. So it was really limiting to have a ring right here and then have to hope that the scope body would clear. Now the optic that I had on this, not knock everything off my shelf, was my Gen 2 Razor HD 4.5 to 27. So I had to have this mounted right around there. And as you can see, the arm off the bolt would just clear that, but I have very limited room here. So this higher rail should alleviate that need to have it there. You see, it clears the bolt with ease. So if you're concerned about clearancing issues, I would recommend at least a rail like this, a little bit higher, as opposed to something like this. If you want to run as lightweight of a rig as possible, I wouldn't even go this route. I would go with the UTG Pro rings. Yeah, they're a little heavy by themselves, but you have less moving parts. Why did I not want to run Pro rings on this? The exact reason why I told you. I want to be able to take this and throw this on. Great. Or an optic that would be in this. Great. Or perhaps I want to take another optic that's already set up for another gun, but I just want to shoot it. Like that. So as you can see, there's plenty of reasons why I wanted to opt for this setup as opposed to what I had on there. And so far, I'm very happy with how it looks and how it feels. I mean, the fit and finish on it are excellent for the price. Yeah, it's $90 and change, at least shipped and taxed to me in New York. But other than that, I think it will fit my bill absolutely flawlessly. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Maybe you got a little information on it for a build for yourself, or maybe you just got inspired to build a precision rig for yourself. Precision 22 is a massive, massive amount of fun, and it doesn't break the bank, at least shooting-wise. Unfortunately, yeah, everything's shaking. It's not an earthquake, I promise you that. Yes, you know, you could spend an arm and a leg and a kidney and maybe part of your liver on a 22 build. This is no exception. But I got a lot of this stuff for a very good price. And you know what? I shoot rimfire all the time because I can afford it. And that's why I dump as much money into this as I can, because I feed this thing with 12 to 15 cent ammunition, as opposed to if I want to shoot challenging groups or challenging distances with 223, 308, you're looking at around $1 a round. So I'm getting 7 shots for 1. And if you've never shot a 22 LR at distance like 300 yards, it's a hell of a lot of fun, and especially if the wind is blowing. That's basically it. Thank you all very much for watching, and as always, see you again next time. And a huge thank you to my Patreon providers and my Subscribe Star subscribers. Without you, this truly wouldn't be possible. If you'd like to support my channel but don't want to join either of those, I completely understand. But you could still help by using my affiliate links in the description below, and or like, share, and subscribe as always. Again, thank you very much.